So I just started working with my driftwood, did some research, figured out how to clean it. So I got some driftwood here tonight. I've got a nice big collection going at home. So I bleach it. It bleaches. It goes through a cleaning process, drying, and finally, when it's dry, I prime it, get it ready for the process. And the primer that I use is a special primer used for encaustic paint. It's highly absorbent, very chalky. I feel like I'm in school, we can pass it around. Very chalky when you feel, so it feels, so it's made by a company called R&F Encaustics. And that's where my supplies come from. They're high-grade artist materials. It's beeswax, purified beeswax with pigment and Damar varnish, which makes the piece harden over time. So again, if you're interested in encaustic work, you can look up R&F Encaustics. So I prime the piece, and then it gets primed with its first coat of wax. I put 3 coats of wax on before I start any color work. And each coat of wax, each time you apply a coat, I feel like Vanna White here, each time you apply a coat, you need to fuse it or heat it. So this is what my husband's been listening to for the sound in my studio. So it has to be heated, either with a heat gun or a torch. Some heating process needs to meld those surfaces together. So that's my torch, and we'll talk about how important it is to feel these things later, to touch the work. So that's the, and then I start putting on layers of color. And the color goes on, again, one coating at a time, infused, until after many layers of color, you finally come up with the end result. So that's the piece. You can feel how the textures build up as you go along, if you want them to. You can smooth them out, or you can manipulate them, but the wax.
The colors in the wax?
Yeah, this is my palette. This is my palette. Not everybody can see it, but it's something that you might be, sure. This is my palette. It's plugged in, it's heated. So you have to work with everything hot. Your brushes, when you need to reach for color, your brush has to be warm on the palette because you've got to have a fluid brush. The colors, these are the colors to answer the question. The colors come in block form, so you melt the color on the palette, and this is the clear medium, clear wax. So you can make your color more transparent with the clear medium, with the clear wax. So that's basically the process. I got a lot of clear medium here, it's stuck to the palette, but I always have a big pot of clear medium, in liquid form, because there's a lot of transparent work. These are very rich condensed colors, so you want to be able to thin those down. So you need to have your hot working surface going. There's a temperature gauge on the palette itself, because you don't want it to go over 180 degrees Fahrenheit, because the paint has to be at the right temperature. It can be toxic at over 200 degrees. So you've got to be careful about the safety procedures in your studio too. Have a fan going with ventilation. Yeah, so that's the basic process. What else did I want to talk about? In a work with heavy texture, there are pieces where in each piece, if you go along and you take a look later, there are places in each piece where I've removed wax. The wonderful thing about encaustic work is it can be additive, you can add on, or you can take away. So it's very sculptural, and it makes it very challenging at the same time, and also very exciting to work with. When you want to take wax away, I love this, it's very sculptural. I've got all kinds of tools to scrape and to gouge with. I also have this wonderful tool here. It's a little iron that you can iron wax away with. And there's a piece, for instance, this highly textured area here was ironed. So you can flatten out your textures. this area here was ironed here. I pulled this down to create this rain effect with the iron. So this is a really awesome tool. And again, when you're working with encaustic, you need to be able to make decisions quickly, and you need to be brave and courageous, and get out the tools, and there's no turning back. You have to commit to it, because it's done. So the exciting thing about this is that for me, it's very stimulating creatively, because you have to put everything on the line. You commit to it. You could lose it all. I mean, if you overheat something, this piece here, I'm allowed to hold it because I made it. But this piece here, I'll take it off the base. Yeah. This piece here, you can imagine how long this took. Well, maybe I'll have to tell you. Layers and layers and layers of wax infusing, and it all can't be done in one day. You have to let the piece set, and then go on the next day. It'll be stable enough to take more work. Then you heat it up a bit, then you can continue fusing. So you get to know this as you go along. But I knew I needed to acknowledge that this was a fluid medium, and to finish this, I needed to let go. Okay, risk everything. So I took a heat lamp, and I set it up near the piece, and I walked away. So I came back, and it melted. So, but you can't plan that. You just have to let it happen. So it's an adventure. It's a journey, which is also part of the theme. The whole thing works for me so well. So have a good look around. Does anyone have any questions? Yes?
How do you get the pock marks? Like brickwood doesn't have pock marks like that. Does
Where?
it?
Well, this is all wax.
With this texture,
I did this.
You built it.
Yeah.
Yes, with layers of wax.
And made it sort of drip to
Yes.
create a hole.
Yes. It's controlled and not controlled. So it's
that's
very exciting. It's very exciting. You can't plan this, but there's a fine balance in this work between knowing where you're going and not knowing where you're going, because then it's interesting. So, right?
I think that's called insanity.
It's so fun. It's so fun. It makes me feel really alive in the moment as an artist. So it's I've really enjoyed doing this work. Yeah.
I really enjoyed today how you talked to me about letting the viewers see, but
Oh,
not
yes.
touch.
Oh yes.
Which I'm sure you'll all see my
I
signs.
wanted to talk about why I enjoy this medium so much, and you know, I launched into it. As you can see, my oil paintings have really been all about glazing and very flat surfaces. And when I knew I wanted to embrace texture, I thought, okay, this is really what I want to do. Really, really embrace texture. I mean, this is a perfect medium to do that. And then I started really thinking about that and realized that what I was really doing was creating an experience for myself and the viewer to perceive the art in a way that is slightly unusual. We were talking about this in the gallery earlier. When you make art that's flat and two-dimensional, and a viewer comes along to look at that, you use your eye, this sense of sight. You use your optics, your eye, which everyone can understand. You know, not many of us want to come up to this and hug it, but we're using our eyes. We perceive it and we know it through our eyes. But when we make sculpture or things that are highly textural, I mean, think of the surface on a Vincent van Gogh painting, highly textural. It's a painting, but anything with high texture, the immediate viewer response is, I want to touch it. Because it's called a haptic response. I mean, there's a name for this, haptic. And the brain perceives the work through two senses, through the optical and through touch. So that's why people tonight want to touch the work, because it's your haptic response kicking in. And that's what I love about this work. To make this work, this is very tactile for me. To make this work, I have to touch it, I have to move it around. There's one kind of paint that I use. It's like lipstick. This color is, I actually make it fluid with a little bit of coconut oil. And I can rub it on the work. And what painting is it? You can see it in one of the paintings where there's little bursts of, maybe one over there. Yes, that one over there behind Sean. In the blue sky where it looks like a burst, the color is burst in the blue, it's kind of bloomed open. That's because of this. So this will produce a different effect than those solid blocks of color. So again, it's very physical, very tactile, which I really enjoy. And the viewer, appreciating the work, wants to touch it, because that's how you will understand it. Your brain wants to understand it that way. So we were in the gallery yesterday and we were setting up, and there were two ladies over here, and they were walking along, and she looked at me and looked around, then she went like this. So that's an honest response, and some of you here tonight have talked about touching it. So that's what it's called, haptic. So you've learned something about why you feel that way. It's the way we need to experience. So thank you very much for listening. Any other questions?
I wanted to ask you said there was a resin that you put on at the end?
No, the resin is in.
Oh, it's in.
Yes, this.
Because it seems to have like a glow,
The sheet.
and
Oh,
it's
yes.
not as sensitive to the fingerprints, that sort of thing as some
This
of
this is the beeswax, the recipe, and there's different combinations, but the one I use is from R&F Encaustics. This is their standard medium. Purified beeswax. This is clear, so there's no pigment in it, and Damar resin. The Damar resin is the hardener.
Okay.
Now they're so shiny tonight because I polished them before.
Okay.
The beauty of encaustic, if there's a little bit of, over time, the encaustics they have 1 to 3 years to cure fully. During that time, there can be a little bit of blooming or hazing of the wax, which is natural. And if that happens with your work, you just take a very soft cloth and give it a little polish. So today we buffed them up because not all of them have been buffed before. Yeah. Okay. Does that answer your question? It's beeswax. It's the wax, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Thank you for listening. Any questions? Come and see me later and enjoy the